that women were weeping over, that part of their unholy trinity, the women weeping for Tammuz that we read earlier. That is that character. And I believe it's one and the same with the Egyptian connection here, and that has resurfaced in America, in DC, which I always want to call it Rome now because it literally is exactly. They copy these things from Rome, and you always look at it and think they're just wanting to be capturing that artistic way of life and all of that, but it's for a reason. And that's why I think the oldest Catholic church in DC was erected by a Jesuit. And when you go through history, it goes, it transitions smoothly into Rome hijacking those pagan lies and bringing them to us and eliminating the Father. And the word tells us that the spirit of the Antichrist denies the Father and the Son. And so, what better way to deny both of them by simply merging them and going against the words that the beloved Son told us are extremely important. I'm not going to, we've been on here for a while, so I don't know if I should, I don't think I should go into the connections of DC and Rome unless you want me to. Did you want me to go into that? How DC, when it was founded, was literally called Rome? I don't know if we had enough time to go into that. We can. But I guess I might make it a little Cliff Notes thing because I want to get to the point here. So you can see, if you haven't seen the videos we've done about this, Rome and DC. I don't want to lose my spot here. Let me skip forward. There's a history lesson. I'm skipping through these timelines because we've covered so many of this stuff. But it's research. If you've never looked into this stuff, you've got anger. Maybe you think, hey, they're going after the Trinity. They don't really know what they're doing. This is one of those things that you need to pray about humbly and sincerely, because what they've done, the persecution and the merger that happened where they changed the Sabbath, they changed all these things. This merger with Babylonian sun god worship stuff was going on. And that's why when you look at the foundation of the capital, this is back in 1663, looking back to the property that would become the capital site anyways. It was inscribed in the Maryland property records as Rome. And so that title, I was like, this has got to be nonsense. This is conspiracy stuff. And you look into it, it was called Rome, Maryland, and its owner was named Francis Pope. And so its southern boundary of the property was shaped by a river named that they named for the river that runs through Rome, Italy, the Tiber. And so they nicknamed that guy Pope of Rome on the Tiber. And I believe that's significant. That's why we have a Pope now who is called Pope Francis. Excuse me.
And I always like to say nope to the Pope.
Yeah. And so this stuff, intertwining, repackaging Babylon, which became Rome essentially, and Rome was that beast system. I mean, it just grew around the entire world. It still lives on, and especially through America right here, as you can see. So let me skip past this one. Oops, going out of order here, guys. Sorry. But yeah, there you have it. The Pope Francis in Rome on the Tiber. And this guy, his name was not originally Pope Francis. Find that hard to believe. His name was actually, let me see if I can skip to that, Jorge Mario Bergoglio. So Gog, you've heard about Gog and Magog. Yep. That was him. And the Pope is a Jesuit, obviously. So that 10-mile square tract of land that became Washington, D.C. was also owned by none other than a Jesuit, this guy, Daniel Carroll. He was a chairman of a 3-man commission appointed by President George Washington, the Masonic president. And he was a Roman Catholic educated by the Jesuits in Maryland and France. And so his signature's also on that Declaration of Independence. So we have more of that Jesuit connection.
So and Jesuits,
Bergoglio
signature is on the Declaration of Independence. Wow.
Yep. It runs deep. And so you've got that Gog and Magog connection. And so you guys, a lot of you know of that. I'm not going to get into that history lesson, but his name, Bergoglio, is probably biblical, with I think Leo standing for lion. You get the Gog, the bear, Burr. Saint Francis of Assisi is who he was named after. And it just gets weirder from there. You see the sun god worshiping and all these old saints, and even becoming a saint is a weird process. You have to have after you die, there has to be people praying to you, which the Bible's against, and you have to have miracles, and then they become canonized and become saints. So that was one of the saints he was named after, was this sun god worshiping uh, Saint Francis, where he even sung his famous canticle praise. It says, "Be praised, my Lord, through all your creatures, especially through my Lord, brother, son." So calling the son his Lord.
Wow.
In his famous little quote here. And you guys can look into this stuff. This is things that I've looked into over the years that just start showing you how they repackage all of this, all of the stuff that we just looked at, we're told to come out of, and we're literally in the midst of all of it, just rebranded. And it starts getting into the heliocentric model, where Copernicus dedicated his heliocentric treatise to one of the popes, and it was the same pope who eventually approved the Jesuit order.
And a Jesuit also came up with a Big Bang Theory too.
Yes, exactly, right there.
Oh man, look at that! I didn't even know that was coming. How about that?
Invented it, and you called it. Yeah, that was the guy, that Jesuit priest. And you guys can see that. I'm not bashing Catholics. I have friends that are Catholics. They always say, "Why are you hating on Catholics?" I have a lot of friends who are Catholics, a lot of pure-hearted people. It's kind of like Masons and people that work at NASA. There's a lot of good-hearted ones that have no clue what goes on higher up, how they've been influenced by Babylon and Rome. Most of mainstream Christianity has. So it's not just the Catholics they attack. That's why we have thousands, I think 45,000 denominations. It's ridiculous. They've gone after the truth. This doesn't happen with other religions and New Age stuff. It only happens with the beliefs, where people are trying to look to the Most High and they want to muddy the waters. And so taking away the creator, what better way to do that than the Big Bang heliocentric model, where we're exploding, and that sun with the 32 rays. A lot of people are into the numbers and stuff. I don't really get too deep into that. It's all about those healing rays of their sun god. And you see that throughout their ceremonies, where they literally believe that the Messiah is right there present in the middle of this object that's shaped like a sun, and it's called a solar monstrance. And so the solar monstrance, of course, Sol, we've talked about this in other videos on here, being related to their sun god Sol Invictus, and monstrance meaning to show. So showing that it belongs to Sol Invictus. If you look out what that name means, that's literally what it means. They're showing you that it belongs to their sun god, and you can't even touch it with your bare hands. It's so sacred. And this makes a lot of people angry, but we're not told at any point in the Bible to hold a graven image and worship the beloved Son as if this is where he's at. It's really
straight up idolatry.
Yeah, so that right there, guys, is showing you these connections. And you have to ask yourself, why would they do this? Well, it goes back to what the beloved Son tells us, who the least in the kingdom of heaven are, who the greatest in the kingdom of heaven are, and who the great are. And it ties a lot into some of the things that Matt talks about, with the Father's words being important, his commandments being important. And if you don't know, just to refresh your memory on who the greatest in the kingdom of heaven are, if you want to be that person, you want to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, he says, humble yourself as this little child. The same is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. You have to be humble. That's extremely important. You think of all the things, like which rules do you have to follow to be the greatest? What do you have to do? We always think of all these different things. Humble yourself. It tells you right there. And then whosoever, and now looking at the least in the kingdom of heaven, it says, whosoever therefore shall, starts with the same wording, break one of the least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. Well, guess what? The great in kingdom of heaven are the people who do and teach those. But where this starts to really play out is when you look at what the beloved Son said is the first of all commandments. Remember, the least are the people who teach you to break them. What's the first of all? To hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. And so I know you don't like using the words. I'm using kind of the words that a lot of people understand. for the Father. I didn't actually put his name there, but for people who are just now looking into this, the Pope himself tells us each creature testifies that God is three. And so, who are we going to believe? Are we going to believe the beloved Son that the Father sent to us? Or are we going to believe the Pope, Rome, Babylon reestablishing itself? So you just have to ask yourself that, pray about it. You know, if the Pope is agreeing with what the beloved Son says and what the Father has told us throughout time when he was giving us his commandments, then I would listen to the Pope. But he is not agreeing with what the Father says, what his Son says, and he is agreeing with what Babylon has done, what Egypt has done, and created a different version of our Father and his Son. It
Yeah, let
seems
me say,
innocent like the globe, but I'll let you go ahead, Matt, and say,
I just want to say that I will always take Yeshua's words because he perfectly walked out the Torah, and you can see that in 1 John 2:6, and he taught others to keep the Torah. For example, the gentleman that had leprosy, he told him to go to the priest, which is straight out of the Torah. So
mm-hmm.
and there's many other examples in the New Testament of that as well.
Yeah. So kind of went fast there on a lot of these things. But again, always, when it comes to coming out of Babylon, I believe that's what we are supposed to help people do is come out of Babylon, expose the lies, expose these practices. It's not going to make you popular. The more you walk like the beloved Son walked, the more hate you're going to receive. I
Yep.
receive hate on a daily basis when you talk about this topic in particular, you get a lot of hate because people are so attached to the versions of the Messiah where he's merged with Babylon. We were attached. I mean, I loved Easter growing up. I loved all of these pagan holidays. We were groomed into doing that from early on.
Yep.
Get in the Christmas spirit, get in the holiday spirit, get in the Halloween spirit, get in the team spirit, every spirit but the Holy Spirit. And so coming out of Babylon is getting away from all those unclean spirits. And so they're
Yep.
showing themselves, but it is definitely time to come out of Babylon and just live for the Father, keep him first, and be humble.